Hulu is facing some backlash right now after they were quick to release a Travis Scott documentary called Astroworld Concert from Hell. Now, this new documentary released by Hulu recapped the horrific events that took place at Travis Scott's festival in Houston just last month. However, as I mentioned, the program was quickly pulled after it received a lot of social media backlash. The documentary was produced by KTRK, a local Houston station owned and operated by ABC, which means that you can actually still watch the special, but it will be on an ABC website instead of, Hulu. In a statement to the press, a spokesperson for Hulu said, "This was an investigative local news special from ABC 13 KTRK TV in Houston that originally aired on November 20th. This was not a Hulu documentary and has since been removed to avoid confusion." This statement was put out after several tweets condemning the documentary began to go viral. In one tweet about the release of the special on Hulu, a user said, "Hulu making a documentary about Astroworld is in poor taste all around. People are still burying their loved ones. The legal cases haven't even started. Great documentaries are done when all the facts are laid out. Not enough time has passed to fully discuss this." Later adding, "Didn't expect this response. I looked into it and I see it's an ABC special, but it's still too soon. I still stick to my earlier opinion. It reads tacky." However, some people in the replies of that tweet I noticed were siding against her. The main defense of this latest documentary is that it's not a documentary at all, and really if you do watch it, you're actually just watching a long news piece that a local station put together. You could perhaps call it an investigative report, but I believe the confusion started because it was listed on Hulu. Maybe it was a problem of assumption. People see that pop up in their feed and then they automatically assume that it must be some kind of documentary, and so they take their anger straight to Twitter without even watching it. In response to the people calling it a news special though, this user replied with, "Okay, this got out of hand quickly. Anyway, I explained my stance. I'm fully aware that it's a news special. How it's packaged was tasteless in my opinion. Not every news story is covered in this way so quickly. Muting this." Now, in the description of what was labeled the Concert from Hell news special, it describes the program as, "Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival was supposed to be the concert of a lifetime, but it turned into a tragic nightmare. A minute-by-minute look at what happened in the crowd, the young victims who were killed, and what happens next." Now, aside from the squabbles over what type of content this was, some that got to watch the special did find it to be quite good. One user tweeted in praise of it saying, "Unpopular opinion, I watched the Hulu Astroworld documentary and it was good. It spoke with grieving families, concert goers, and shared who the victims were. It was not a negative slant. It cleared up misinformation. After large tragedies, these documentaries are up within weeks." With another adding, "Interesting that you mentioned this documentary, as I watched it too and thought that it was very well made and very informative. My heart goes out to all of the families that lost loved ones at the event. And it's strange though that if it were a documentary, people believe that this is inappropriate timing, but then if it was a news special, it's fine because they're just reporting on what happened. But they're still profiting off of that as well within the immediate tragedy." The family of 9-year-old Ezra Blount, who lost his life after being severely injured at Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival, has now decided they will not accept any of Mr. Scott's money for funeral expenses. According to Rolling Stone, Travis Scott had extended this offer to pay for all of Ezra's funeral expenses after Blount passed away on November 14th. He had been in critical condition since the event on November 5th though. In a statement, the Blount family lawyer Bob Hilliard said, "Your client's offer is declined. I have no doubt Mr. Scott feels remorse. His journey ahead will be painful. He must face and hopefully see that he bears some of the responsibility for this tragedy." And in a turn of events, Travis Scott is also being represented by a new lawyer. His new lawyer, Daniel Petrocelli, said in a statement, "Travis is devastated by the tragedy that occurred at the Astroworld Festival and grieves for the families whose loved ones died or were injured. Travis is committed to doing his part to help the families who have suffered and begin the long process of healing in the Houston community. Toward that end, Travis would like to pay for the funeral expenses for Mr. Blount's son." Scott's new lawyer is famous for representing Fred Goldman at the wrongful death trial that found O.J. Simpson civilly liable for the deaths of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. He also went on to add that the acceptance of this funeral expense offer would in no way affect the lawsuit that has been filed by Ezra's father. In Bob Hilliard's reply to all of this, he said that for now Travis Scott will have to respect that his own devastation is nothing compared to that of Ezra's family, adding, "There may be, and I hope there is, redemption and growth for him on the other side of what this painful process will be, and perhaps one day, once time allows some healing for the victims and acceptance of responsibility by Mr. Scott and others, Tristan and Mr. Scott might meet, as there is also healing in that. During the festival, Ezra was on his dad's shoulders enjoying the show, but when the crowd started to get out of control, he lost Ezra in the chaos. Ezra's grandmother recounted what happened and said, "Everyone was pushing. It was so tight with no exits. His dad couldn't breathe at all and passed out. We don't really know what happened to Ezra after that." They would later find out that he had been rushed to the hospital and listed as a John Doe. He would then linger in a medically induced coma for days on end until his organ failure was irreversible. No parent should ever have to go through such a heartbreaking experience like this. And Ezra's grandfather also added in a statement, "I just think that there should be some accountability. Cause for my grandson to end up the way he did. Something terrible happened. He's a small innocent child. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve it at all." And despite not taking Travis Scott's offer for funeral expenses, the family of Ezra do have a lawsuit filed against Travis, Live Nation, Scoremore Management, and others involved in the event. The lawsuit also alleges that there was gross negligent conduct that resulted in Ezra's death while at Astroworld. In the lawsuit, they are seeking monetary relief of over $1 million, and also that there was negligence in a great number of aspects, including crowd control, failure to provide proper medical attention, hiring, training, supervision, and retention. Live Nation also said that they will continue to support and assist local authorities with their ongoing investigation, adding that it will help both the fans who attended and their families get the answers that they deserve. Kylie Jenner is back in the news, and it's because her fans are furious over how fast she has moved on from what happened at Astroworld. Kylie has yet to make an actual Instagram post, but her stories have been quite active as of late. Travis Scott, if you recall, was spotted near Kris Jenner's home playing golf with Mark Wahlberg, Michael Jordan, and Kris Jenner's boyfriend Corey Gamble. Although amid the massive lawsuits he's facing, he did not look very present. At least that's what we gathered from looking at the photos that were posted. I mean, currently he has been hit with over 300 lawsuits, so yeah, that might distract anyone from having a good time. These lawsuits also include the ones that are seeking $750 million in damages, as well as the one that's for $2 billion. However, included in a lot of those are also Drake, Live Nation, and Apple. What is angering Kylie Jenner fans, though, is that she recently posted a short Instagram video showing off her new Christmas tree. And reportedly, the tree is decked out with decorations worth over $1,000. The issue people are having is that the father of her children could be on the hook to pay billions of dollars in damages to the victims of his Astroworld Festival. In the short video, Kylie also featured a 3-tier electronic wood Christmas story pyramid that was handcrafted by a family-run company called Muller. This wooden Christmas pyramid also has roots in German folklore. Just a fun little side fact for you. But Travis apparently flew to Southern California to spend the Thanksgiving holiday with his family, including Kylie Jenner. But since he was not spotted in this Instagram story, many are wondering if he left right after Thanksgiving to perhaps go back to Houston and deal with the many lawsuits ahead. Shortly after the incident, Travis Scott and Kylie released statements, but instead of them being viewed as apologizing for their actions, their statements were interpreted as being just insensitive. Scott tried to make amends with his angered fans and the city of Houston, really, by saying that he would cover the funeral expenses, but everyone in Travis Scott's inner circle right now is definitely feeling the heat. Before this Christmas tree Instagram story, Kylie previously posted to her stories to wish Hailey Bieber a happy birthday. That IG story was her first real moment of breaking her silence after the statement that she released that I mentioned earlier. A source also went on to tell The Sun that after the catastrophe in Houston on November 5th, Kylie decided to delay the launch of her holiday makeup line, a launch that has been dropped on November 19th for the last 4 years. Travis Scott's attorney, Edwin F. McPherson, also has been going to bat for Travis and said that there has been way too much finger pointing when it comes to this lawsuit. McPherson even took a shot at the Houston police chief for contradicting what he said. Scott's attorney tells the press, "There's been multiple finger pointing, much of which has been by city officials who have sent inconsistent messages and have backtracked from original statements. Houston Police Chief Troy Finner was quoted in the New York Times as saying, 'You cannot just close when you got 50,000 and over 50,000 individuals. We have to worry about riots when you have a group that's that young.' Yet just a short time later, Chief Finner states the responsibility to stop the show falls on Travis." Despite what Travis Scott's attorney said earlier, though, as with many lawsuits, these put the blame on Travis and the festival organizers, especially for failing to take even the most basic of safety precautions. In one lawsuit, it says, "Defendants egregiously failed in their duty to protect the health, safety, and lives of those in attendance at the concert, including but not limited to the failure to provide adequate security personnel to implement crowd control measures, proper barricades, dates and the failure to provide a sufficient amount of emergency medical support. So far, there has also been no post made to the Instagram pages of Kylie's various companies, and following the tragedy, her only statement was an Instagram post where she said, "Travis and I are broken and devastated. My thoughts and prayers are with all who lost their lives, were injured, or affected in any way by yesterday's events, and also for Travis, who I know cares deeply for his fans and the Houston community. I want to make it clear we weren't aware of any fatalities until the news came out after the show, and in no world would have continued filming or performing. I am sending my deepest condolences to all the families during this difficult time, and will be praying for the healing of everyone who has been impacted." Travis Scott has just been hit with another lawsuit from the family of a 14-year-old Astroworld victim. The family of John Hilger are devastated by the loss of their son, and so now they are wanting to hold Travis Scott accountable. According to a recent report, the family have filed a new lawsuit against Travis Scott, Live Nation, and other event organizers. The lawsuit filed in Houston made claims similar to the other lawsuits that we have told you about on this channel, mainly that Travis and the concert organizers failed to provide a safe environment for the fans in attendance. In addition to that, they also cited security failures, a lack of personnel, barriers, and emergency medical staff. In a statement to the press, John's father Chris said, "The pain of our loss from our son John not making it home alive from an event such as this is intolerable. He was a beautiful young man who simply wanted to enjoy his first concert event with friends, whom he treasured spending time with more than anything. If this lawsuit prevents even one family from having to go through the extreme pain and anguish that we have endured, then it is the least we can do to honor John's memory." The lawsuit was filed by attorney Richard Mithoff, and according to the suit, they are seeking $1 million in damages. The sad thing is that this new lawsuit is just one of the many that have been filed against Travis Scott and Live Nation. I mean, one filing is seeking $2 billion in damages, and another is asking for $750 million in damages. Plus, within just that one, there are hundreds of alleged victims, whether it involves physical injuries or mental. 14-year-old John Hilger was one of the 10 that lost their life at Astroworld, and with these lawsuits mounting up, authorities are under a lot of pressure to figure out what exactly happened here and who is to blame for all of this. A source close to Travis has repeatedly told the media that Scott had no idea the extent of what was going on in the crowd while he was performing. Plus, like we've told you before, with how medics were being split up during the show, there was an obvious breakdown in communication at some point. Plus, there was that weird video of the Houston police just casually filming the show right when they had previously declared that time frame to be when the mass casualty event took place. Apple Music also takes on some of the blame because of the way that the barriers were set up for the show. It was more to do with getting a good shot than the safety of the crowd. The crazy thing in this scenario is that everyone is pointing fingers. I mean, for a bunch of people that just put on a festival and work together, no one wants to be solely to blame here. Travis Scott's attorney went on the defensive pretty early and said, "It was reported that the operations plan designated that only the festival director and executive producers have authority to stop the show, neither of which is part of Travis's crew. This also runs afoul of HPD's own previous actions when it shut down the power and sound at this very festival when the performance ran over 5 minutes back in 2019. Live Nation seems to not be pointing any fingers here and then just giving reassurance that they will be continuing to assist authorities. In an earlier statement, the company said they will continue to support and assist local authorities in their ongoing investigation so that both the fans who attended and their families can get the answers they want and deserve, and we will address all legal matters at the appropriate time. And hopefully the families of the victims can get these answers soon. This month will definitely be going down as the worst month ever for Travis Scott's career. After 50,000 people attended his Astroworld Festival, over 300 people were injured and 10 concert goers ended up losing their lives. After issuing his original statement on finding out the news after the concert ended, he then said that he would pay for the funeral expenses of the victims. Travis pretty much went into hiding after that though. He was spotted a few times on the phone pacing around his home in Houston, but for the most part he has remained out of sight. However, now it seems like in sync with Kylie posting to her Instagram stories, Travis is also coming back out into the public. According to TMZ, he was spotted in the Palm Springs area at a local golf course. Apparently he played a few rounds with Michael Jordan, Mark Wahlberg, and Kris Jenner's boyfriend Corey Campbell. The golf course is also rumored to be near Kris Jenner's gated community. A few snapshots from this celebrity hang were posted online, and even in these candid shots you can tell that this festival tragedy is looming over Travis. He just looks so deep in thought in most of these images, and I mean currently he has been hit with over 300 lawsuits, so yeah, that might distract anyone from having a good time. These lawsuits also include the ones that are seeking $750 million in damages, as well as the one that's going for $2 billion. However, included in a lot of those are also Drake, Live Nation, and Apple. Travis Scott's attorney, Edwin F. McPherson, also has been going to bat for Travis and said that there has been too much finger pointing pointing. McPherson even took a shot at the Houston police chief for contradicting what he said. Scott's attorney tells the press, "There has been multiple finger pointing, much of which has been by city officials, who have sent inconsistent messages and have backtracked from original statements. Houston Police Chief Troy Finner was quoted in the New York Times as saying, 'You cannot just close when you got 50,000 and over 50,000 individuals. We have to worry about rioting when you have a group that's that young.' Yet just a short time later, Chief Finner states the responsibility to stop the show falls on Travis. Travis apparently flew to Southern California to spend the Thanksgiving holiday with his family, including Kylie Jenner. Despite what Travis Scott's attorney said earlier, though, as with many of these lawsuits, these put the blame on Travis and the festival organizers, especially for failing to take even the most basic of safety precautions. In one of the lawsuits it says, "Defendants egregiously failed in their duty to protect the health, safety, and lives of those in attendance at the concert, including but not limited to the failure to provide adequate security personnel to implement crowd control measures, proper barricades, and the failure to provide a sufficient amount of emergency medical support." The tragedy at this event had been set into motion when SZA ended her show. People then began to rush over to the main stage area to catch Travis Scott's performance, in an area that was already jammed with a ton of people. The flow of more people coming in started to then increase pressure on the crowd, which left many people caught in the push towards the front of the stage. One concert goer who was caught in this rush and was actually pushed towards the South Quadrant told the press, "Once the crowd was moving, you were moving with it. You were at the mercy of the crowd pretty much. There was no way you would have been able to move around or keep yourself stable." Experts are now also saying that the layout of the barriers in the crowd were also to blame. Keith Still, a visiting professor at the University of Suffolk who specializes in crowd safety and crowd risk analysis, told the press, "In general, that's not a safe design because you can't regulate the number of people who are in a high pressure area." Travis Scott's attorney is also stating that the operations plan for Astroworld set plans for certain people to have the power to stop the concert. This included the festival director and executive producers. McPherson claimed that because Travis was heavily focused on his performance, he did not have the ability to actually see that his fans were being injured in the crowd. Scott's attorney then goes on to say, "It was reported that the operations plan designated that only the festival director and executive producers have authority to stop the show, neither of which is part of Travis's crew. This also runs afoul of HPD's own previous actions when it shut down the power and sound at this very festival when the performance ran over 5 minutes back in 2019, adding, "Investigations should start proceeding over finger pointing so that together we can identify exactly what transpired and how we can prevent anything like this from happening again." Well, I certainly hope so. Kylie Jenner has finally broken her silence following the Travis Scott Astroworld tragedy. After about 2 weeks of being radio silent, Kylie started to post again on Instagram, and people are not happy about it. After 10 people lost their lives at the festival, the lawsuits have topped a total of $3 billion. Shortly after the incident, Travis Scott and Kylie released statements, but instead of them being viewed as apologizing for their actions, their statements were interpreted as being insensitive. Scott tried to make amends with his angered fans in the city of Houston by saying that he would cover funeral expenses, but everyone in Travis Scott's inner circle is feeling the heat right now. Recently, Kylie posted to her Instagram stories to wish her friend Hailey Bieber a happy birthday. However, prior to this, the only other post that she had made was that statement that I just mentioned. In her latest message to fans, Kylie shared a photo of Stormi and Hailey swimming and said, "Happy birthday, Hailey Bieber. You are such a beautiful person inside and out. We love you lots." And a source also went on to tell The Sun that after the catastrophe in Houston on November 5th, Kylie decided to delay the launch of her holiday makeup line, a launch that has been dropped on November 19th for the last 4 years. Out of the 50,000 people that attended Astroworld, more than 280 have filed lawsuits with Houston-based lawyer Tony Busby. His lawsuits against Travis Scott and Drake total about $750 million in damages on behalf of the victims. However, now the collective number between the event organizers and the performers has reached a whopping $3 billion, as I mentioned earlier. Whenever people hear that number, though, they automatically assume that the $3 billion will all fall onto Travis Scott. But a lawyer named Nick Rosansky said to Yahoo Finance that it would be a stretch for all of the lawsuits to fall on just Travis. He goes on to say, "The law requires him to engage in specific conduct that incited the incidents. What did he do at Astroworld that night? That's the question the courts will be asking." And the Houston Police Chief Troy Finner, though, tried to shift all of the blame to Travis Scott for not pulling the plug on his show earlier. This is mainly because new footage after the event showed Troy's officers casually filming at the front of the stage 30 minutes after they said a mass casualty event had taken place. The police chief then went on to say, "We've been looking and the timelines have moved, and that's why we shouldn't jump ahead of things. Let's just wait. That's part of the investigation." He then went on to add that ending the show was not up to the police at all. Continuing in his statement to the media, Finner said, "Authorities' ability to end the show. We don't hold the plug, okay? But it's always in a plan. There's always discussion of how that would happen, and we had those discussions with the promoters. The ultimate authority to end the show is with production and the entertainer." Kylie and Stormy did stay in Houston for a bit following what happened, but it was said that she and Stormy flew back to Los Angeles on November 12th. A source told The Sun, "Kylie and her team waited until it was late and left the house in blacked out cars heading for the airport. They didn't want anyone to see them." This Instagram story from Kylie, though, was actually the second post after she and Kendall dropped a promotional video. However, this one is more significant because it's coming from her actual personal page. I'm sure she wanted to wish Haley a happy birthday, but she could have just called her, you know? So really, this is most likely to test the waters on how people will feel if she just starts coming back and posting as if everything's normal. I suppose only time will tell if her brands bounce back from this major loss of promotion time. That would speak volumes about her fan base. If you recall, we recently did a video about how Travis Scott was facing $750 million in lawsuits for Astroworld. Believe it or not, but now that number has now been added to a whopping $2 billion lawsuit. Yes, billion with a capital B. A Texas-based attorney has now filed a $2 billion lawsuit against Travis Scott, Live Nation, and other people that were involved in this tragedy. Attorney Thomas J. Henry filed the lawsuit, and the list of the defendants may be long, but the people that he was hired to represent is longer. The defendants listed in this suit include Travis Scott, Drake, Apple Music, and Energy Stadium, but on the other side, he is representing 282 Astroworld concert goers. In a statement to the press regarding this massive lawsuit, Henry said, "The defendants stood to make an exorbitant amount of money off of this event, and they still chose to cut corners, cut costs, and put attendees at risk." Adding, "My clients want to ensure the defendants are held responsible for their actions, and they want to send the message to all performers, event organizers, and promoters that what happened at Astroworld cannot happen again." Ever since filing this massive lawsuit, this attorney claims that an additional 120 people have reached out to him looking for representation in this case. After filing, Thomas did an interview with Hollywood Life and went into detail about some of the injuries that his clients are facing. His clients are understandably traumatized from having to step over the bodies of people that lost their lives during this festival, and then he adds, "They didn't have a choice because there was nowhere to move. These people were trapped. They couldn't breathe. They couldn't get out." This lawsuit also shed some light on Apple Music's disastrous role in this festival. Henry alleges that Apple's obtaining of the festival's online streaming rights played a critical role in the crowd control disaster. The lawsuit goes on to say, "Early reports from the investigation of the Astroworld catastrophe indicate that the premises were arranged in a fashion that best served Apple's online streaming of the concert at the detriment to concert-goer safety." However, Apple Music has yet to release any statement in regards to these allegations. Travis Scott is making sure to act fast though, and announced soon after that he would be paying for the funeral costs of the victims at Astroworld. However, with a $2 billion lawsuit on the table, I don't know how much of that he will personally have to fork up. He might not have the money to help pay for these funeral expenses. Live Nation and another promoter called Score More also released a statement on how they will be handling the next steps. On Twitter, they said, "We wanted to provide an update on the steps that Score More, Live Nation, and the Astroworld Fest team have been taking. Throughout the weekend, we have been working to provide local authorities with everything they need from us in order to complete their investigation and get everyone the answers they are looking for. Our staff has met with local authorities to provide information, and we have also provided them with all footage from our CCTV cameras. Loadout of the site and equipment is currently paused to give investigators the time they requested to walk and document the grounds. Full refunds are being offered for all those who purchased tickets, and most importantly, we are working on ways to support attendees, the families of victims, and staff, from providing mental health counseling to setting up a health fund to help with costs for medical expenses. Our entire team is mourning alongside the community." Also, just so we're clear, this $2 billion lawsuit is on top of the other $750 million that attorney Tony Busby is seeking for 125 other people that were also affected by this tragedy. We also had a statement from the CEO of Paradox, which was the medical company hired by Astroworld for the event. While speaking with CNN, the CEO Alex Pollock said, "This is something I'll have nightmares about for the rest of my life. The team is extremely broken up about it. Seeing so many young people getting CPR at one time is just something no one should have to go through. Even though we're medical professionals, we should be used to it. You can't get used to something like that." This was truly an impossible feat though. To have 11 people go into cardiac arrest at the same time would definitely give anyone nightmares, especially if it's your job to help them. I mean, who do you even choose to start with? Then on top of that, they said that the other concert goers did not make their job easy. Alex goes on to add, "We were doing CPR on the back of carts trying to get out of that crowd. People were jumping on top of the carts. They were pulling us off of people. They thought it was a joke." I could not even imagine what those working conditions must have felt like, and hopefully people are actually held accountable for this disaster.